Well, thank you, Anthony. I was asked to speak today about needing help with something in my life. And for me, it was needing help with alcoholism. I met God in the basement of a church, or in the basement of a bank. So I didn't meet God in the normal fashion that regular churchgoers do. My story begins, or I'm going to start my story, this part of my story here, after high school. So I went to college, and I did what I thought every college kid did. I went to parties, I did what made me happy, and for the first couple years of college, that worked out okay. It was fun. I mean, I'm not going to lie and say, every part of my drinking wasn't fun. The first couple years were actually fun. But somewhere in that time, I lost control of what I was doing, and it was probably right off the bat. I thought every college kid went out and drank every single day. I came to find out that's not actually the case. So like I said, the first couple years of college were, they were okay. I got average to above average grades. I was able to play baseball in college, and, I graduated from Iowa Lakes, and life was going okay at that time. The next part of that next stage of my drinking, I was still in college, I moved away from home, and things started to change. The amounts of alcohol that I drink in a single day changed. It went from drinking, just beer all night to I had to substitute liquor in with that because just beer wasn't doing it anymore. My tolerance had gotten higher. I wanted that effect immediate as opposed to later on. And, like most college kids that I hung out with, then the experimentation with drugs happened as well. So the amounts were going up, liquor, I was just doing a lot of things that God absolutely did not have in mind for me to be doing. My friends started getting tired of me. They didn't want to hang out with me very much anymore. I was very, very selfish. I did whatever made me happy. I did whatever made me happy in that moment, and I didn't care what was going to happen the next day. No consequences. I had no responsibility, and I did everything for me. After I'm going to lose my spot here. Okay. For the next 5 years, I had the same pattern in my life. Same things happened over and over. I left Iowa Lakes. I went to UNI. I did average at best in school, and then the drinking got in the way. And I got kicked out of UNI. I couldn't do the grades. I failed every single class. I stopped going to class, so obviously I'm not going to pass the classes and stuff like that when you never show up. And so I got kicked out of UNI. Like every alcoholic, I figured the problem wasn't with me, it was just my scenery, so I switched. And I moved to Iowa City, and the same pattern happened. 2 years later, I'm kicked out of school, I'm drinking too much, and I have no idea what it is that I'm doing. It was at that point that I moved back to Northwest Iowa, and this was the final stages of my drinking. In the moment, I didn't realize this, but looking back, the final stages of my drinking, it was no longer fun for me. It was just a way of life. I did not know how to not drink. I couldn't fix something in my house without drinking. I couldn't cook a meal without drinking. I couldn't mow the lawn without drinking. And then let alone, I couldn't do any of the other things that normal people do. Christmas, New Year's, any of those holidays. I mean, I couldn't fathom being away from alcohol at those times. I thought this is just, how can I possibly do that? Maybe I can cut back, but I certainly can't quit. So I'm back in Northwest Iowa, and I'm in another college, and of course, same thing happens in my life. A year and a half, 2 years later, I'm drinking every day. I'm kicked out of school, and my family has to sit here and watch me drink at home by myself every single day. I went from social drinking, going out to the bars, doing what normal people do, to being a hermit, living just everything by myself. And my family had to watch this. I did all this just because I wanted to be happy. Eventually, like I said, I got kicked out of that school again. And then, I don't know how it happened, but someone convinced me to write a letter to the dean, let them know that I'm going to, try harder, do better. And so I did that. And they let me back in school under the condition that I get straight A's. B's are lower and I'm done. I somehow managed to graduate while drinking the whole time. But my family was getting tired of me. My friends got tired of me. Now my family's getting tired of me. My family loves me. They're going to support me no matter what, but there's only so much that they can take. And so they started to get tired of things that I was doing. I made multiple attempts to quit drinking. By the end of my drinking, I just said, hey, I'm going to go ahead and, I'll only drink wine, because wine's so much more sophisticated than beer and liquor. But at the end of the day, 3 or 4 bottles of wine is still the same thing. I made those bargains like, I'll only drink on holidays, or I'll only drink with my friends, or I'll only drink on the weekends. This lasted for about 2 or 3 days, maybe a week, and then I was right back to drinking every day, until someone would get mad at me, until someone would say, hey, you need to stop, or you need to slow down, or you need to do something. I don't know what got me to the point of saying, okay, I'll be done, I'm not going to do this anymore, and so I just quit cold turkey. I was tired of listening to people get mad at me, so I quit out of spite, just saying, you don't think I'm strong enough to do this? I'm going to do this. I can do this by myself. I'm strong enough, and I wasn't. The first couple days went okay. By that third day, I physically couldn't do it. I don't know if it was the shakes or what, but at the end of my workday, 3:30, 4 o'clock rolled around, and I had this feeling inside me that's I can't even describe, but my body knew it was time for drinking again, and I physically could not do it anymore. And so I didn't. I hid the drinking. I'd drive around after work. I'd drink as fast as I possibly could. I'd come home, and that was my life. That was fun. That was what I deserved. And eventually, obviously, I got caught. I mean, you can't hide that kind of stuff forever. And so when I got caught, something else had to change again. I decided, I'm going to go to my first 12-step meeting. I was really, really nervous. I didn't want to go. And my biggest fear was that I thought they did like group hugs there, and I didn't want any part of that. It turns out they don't do group hugs, but I went to my first 12-step meeting in the basement of a bank, and it was there that I met God for the first time. I'd grown up going to church, but it was really just checking something off the list. Show up on Sunday, go to church, you were there, and then live the rest of the week for me. I met God for the first time in the basement of a bank. I couldn't do this anymore on my own. I didn't know what to expect when I got there, but what I got there was stories of other people and how they were able to do it. And there was no magic pill to make them stop. There was one thing, and it was a higher power. That's the only reason they were able to stop. That's the only reason. And I started listening to their stories, and I started hearing about this God that I had never heard about before. And slowly, I met God. I did not have the big awakening moment or anything like that, but I slowly got to know God, and God helped me quit drinking. I kept coming back. I kept doing what I was supposed to do, and I stopped. Now, the first little bit was terrible. Relapsing every 1 to 3 months, then relapsing every 6 months. I couldn't stay sober for very long, but I was doing something. I was trying. My brother gave me the analogy one time of learning to walk, and I think for me, God looked at my relapses and my struggle and my sin the same way we would look at my children learning how to walk, and they'd take 2 steps and then they'd fall down. And then they take 2 more steps and they'd fall down. And when they fell down, you know, we as parents weren't sitting here saying, you know, oh, how could you do that? How could you fall? You had it. You just took 2 steps. How on earth could you do that? It wasn't like that. We picked them back up and we said, hey, great job. You can do this again. Keep walking towards me. Keep coming. And I feel like that's what God says. That's what God says to me. I was actually supposed to do this back in April 2013, but I couldn't. I had another series of relapses. I hid it from my family, and I went to treatment. Now, luckily for this church, we have amazing elders and deacons who picked up where I messed up, and they came up here and they did their story instead of me. But this was something I was supposed to do like 2 years ago, and I couldn't do it. When I went to treatment, I asked God. I said, God, I don't know what to do. Like I'm tired of not being able to do this all the time, all by myself. And I asked him. I said, just please. For the first time, I accepted Christ into my life. I had God. I didn't have Jesus. I accepted Christ into my life, and I just said, please, 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 take away my desire to drink. I don't want to do it anymore. And his answer was no. He's not going to do that. What he gave me was so much more. I wanted to be done drinking. I didn't want that temptation anymore, but God used it for bigger and better purposes. From 2 Corinthians 12, 7 through 9, it says, there was given me a thorn in my flesh, a messenger of Satan to torment me. 3 times I pleaded with the Lord to take it away from me, but he said to me, my grace is sufficient for you, for my power is made perfect in your weakness. And for me, that's it. That's why I still have that desire to drink, because his power is made perfect in my weakness. If he totally took that away from me 2 years ago, I wouldn't be here today. I wouldn't be up here talking. I wouldn't be part of this church family. I'd be my own God. I could do these things all by myself. I wouldn't be part of this church family. I wouldn't be part of a missional community, a huddle. I wouldn't get to do any of the things that I get to do here at Good News and for God's kingdom purposes, okay? I wouldn't be able to do any of that stuff. About 4 weeks ago, Pastor John said something that basically sums it up for me. Only God can change my heart. Only the Holy Spirit can convict my sin, and only Christ can save me. Thank you for letting me share.